Hi, and welcome to Watch It Played. My name is Rodney Smith, and in this video, we're going to learn the 2 to 4 player game, Art Society, designed by Mitch Wallace and published by Mighty Boards, who helped sponsor this video. You're collecting fabulous art for yourself, sure, but if you can't impress your friends, what's the point really? Here, you'll compete to collect and display the best art to gain the admiration of your peers. So join me at the table, and let's learn how to play. To set up, place this museum board in the center of the play area, along with what are known as the value tokens, and also set these 4 prestige markers nearby. Then put all of the tiles marked with yellow shields into a supply. These are known as the decor tiles, and I'm putting them into some trays that I have. Each player now collects one of these player boards, and we'll assume we have 2 players in this video and return the others back to the box. Check the symbol on the back of your board and then collect the 2 scoring markers and wall bonus token that shows that matching symbol. You then set these by the museum board. Each player also collects the 20 bidding cards numbered from 1 to 20, showing their symbol on the back. During the game, you'll hold all of these in your hand, keeping their values secret from the other players. Now find the starting paintings, which are the tokens with this back. Give them a good mix and deal 1 to each player, returning the rest back to the box. You'll flip your starting painting face up and then place it on this blue wall area of your board so it's covering at least one of the stars printed here. So I could place this in any one of these positions, but let's say I decide to put it here. When a painting is properly placed, you'll be able to see your player symbols around its outside edge. So I couldn't put it like this, for example. Also, there'll be a symbol at the bottom of the painting, and this must be at the bottom. I couldn't rotate the painting like this. And we'll see as the video goes on why you might want to place your painting in one position over another. The game comes with over 100 painting tiles, and you'll organize them by the values on their backs and their matching shapes, either by putting them on the table or keeping them in the included insert, which has marked spots for each of their types. I find this insert very handy, so we'll keep the paintings in the box, but make sure the tiles within each group are thoroughly shuffled. Finally, find the white starting bid cards, which are marked with a star on their back and numbered from 1 to 4 on their faces. Shuffle these face down and deal 1 face up to each player. The person with the lowest value is given this gavel and will be the auctioneer for the first round of the game. Players will keep these starting bid cards face up in front of themselves, and you return any extras back to the box. You can also give each player one of these rules and scoring summaries, and that's the setup. In Art Society, you and the other players will be going to auctions to bid on art. Art you gain will be displayed on your wall, and how they're arranged will also have an impact on your final score. So will the artwork that doesn't get bought at the auction, which will go to the museum and drive up the value of certain paintings, as we'll see. The game is played over a series of rounds, and each round is broken into 5 steps, starting with preparing the auction, which is conducted by the auctioneer, the player who's holding the gavel token. They now select any combination of paintings from the supply equal to the number of players plus 1. So in our 2-player game, they'll pick any 3 paintings. And again, these can come from the same section or any combination of sections. However, they don't look at the faces of the tokens as they make their picks, only the backs. We'll understand why an auctioneer might pick certain paintings later, but for now, we'll assume this was their selection. With the paintings picked, they now arrange them so that each painting is paired with their matching value token. You can just leave any unused value tokens to the side. And once they're arranged, all of the paintings are then flipped face up. Now it's time for the second step of the round, placing bids and acquiring paintings. Here, each player goes through their hand of bid cards, which at the beginning of the game is all of them numbered from 1 to 20. And they simultaneously and secretly pick 1 to put face down on top of their previous bid card, which right now would be the white one they were dealt during the setup. I like to keep my bid cards in order, but that can make it easier for another player to guess which one I'm picking if they see which end of my hand I'm drawing from, so I like to make my selections under the table. Either way, when everyone's ready, their chosen bid cards are flipped face up. In order from highest to lowest bid, each player now takes 1 painting from the auction area. So in this case, if I was this player, I would go first.
If you ever have a tie, let's say both players had bid 12, then in that case, the tied players reveal the card directly under their current bid, and whoever has the highest value there breaks the tie in their favor. If there was still a tie, the tied players would reveal the next card down, and so on. Now eventually, ties will always break because the last card in each player's stack will always be one of the original, differently valued white bids dealt during the setup. That said, other than when breaking a tie, players cannot go through each other's bidding stacks. When it's a player's turn to take a painting, they pick any one they want and can take as long as they need to make their selection. Paintings will ultimately end up on their board, and they can take one, experiment with how they might want to place it, and then return it and instead collect a different painting. Only once a player has declared they have the painting they want does the next player collect their painting from the options. And players will take turns like this, from highest bidder down to the lowest, collecting one painting each. When everyone's done, there'll be a single painting left unclaimed, and we'll see what happens with that in a moment. But first, let's go to the next step of the round, placing tiles. Here you'll add the painting you just acquired to your gallery wall, which is the area with the -2 values in each of its 4 corners. When adding a painting, it must touch at least one other tile in your gallery at some point along a flat edge. Touching on just a corner doesn't count, so I couldn't do this, but I might, for example, place it here. Now, as we saw earlier, it's important to make sure the painting is facing the right way up. It can't be rotated. You'll know it's the right way because every painting has a red, blue, yellow, or green type label at its bottom. Lastly, as you add more paintings to your gallery, you can never extend past the edges. So we couldn't add this painting here. Instead, we might put it like this. When you gain a new tile, you don't have to place it right away, even though this is the placing tile step. You can change your mind about where you want to set the tile you gained this round all the way up until the end of the round. However, paintings placed in previous rounds can never be moved. And paintings you add to your gallery may score you points at the end of the game. And we'll see how that works in detail later, but I want to mention a couple of things about placement to keep in mind. Every painting has one of 4 different styles of frames showing around their outside edge, and is considered to be one of 4 different types based on the symbol found at its bottom. Either still life, portrait, city life, or landscape. As we'll see later, at the end of the game, paintings will score prestige points, but any touching the side of one or more tiles sharing the same type score no prestige. I've set up this example to show that these 2 paintings won't score prestige, so it might have been better for me to put this painting here where it's not touching a painting of the same type. And keep in mind, paintings of the same type can touch on the corners without penalty. So in a case like this, both of these red portrait paintings could still score at the end of the game. Regardless of whether paintings share the same type, if a painting touches one or more other paintings with the same frame, they'll earn bonus decor tiles based on how many matching frames were touched. Let's say it was later in the game and we had this situation on our board. By adding this painting here, its frame is touching 3 other paintings with the same frame type. You now collect a single decor tile from the supply with a number of these yellow shield symbols equal to or less than the number of matching frame styles your painting just touched. Just to make it easier to see, I've pulled one of each type of decor tile out from the supply. So by touching 3 matching frames, we can take any one of these decor tiles. So even though I'm allowed to take a 3 shield tile, I might choose just to take a single shield tile. If a painting you add to your gallery instead ends up touching 4 or more paintings with the same frame type, things change a little. Instead of taking just a single decor tile, you may take any combination of decor tiles that add up to the number of matching frames touched. Here, we touched 5 other frames of the same type, so perhaps I'd take this 3 shield decor and 2 1 shield decor. When you gain decor tiles, you place them following the same rules as placing paintings, but their smaller size will help you fill in some of the gaps you may find in your gallery wall. This can be valuable because you'll earn a bonus for filling all the spaces of your gallery by the end of the game. That said, if you gain a decor tile on the same turn that you filled in your gallery, meaning you'd have no space left to place this, then you don't take what would be a useless decor piece at that point. I should also mention, if a type of decor ever runs out in the supply, let's say I was owed a single decor shield, but there were none left to take, then if it's possible for me or another player to replace decor already in a gallery with another piece that would fill the same number of spaces, then that must happen. So I could replace these two single decor pieces with this double to get two singles back in the supply if I needed them. So now we know how to gain and place paintings and decor. But anytime you gain either, you may instead give them to your assistant. Sometimes you'll gain a piece and can't or don't want to place it just yet. For example, if I gained this painting, I may not want to place it since it would have to go next to this painting, which shares the same type. And as we learned earlier, that means neither would score prestige later. So maybe I'll instead give it to my assistant, which is shown here, adding it to the space there. And you can have any one painting or decor piece here of any size. In the future, when a person would be placing a new tile, they can also add their assistant's tile in either order. So I could gain this new tile and maybe place this assistant's tile first and then place the other one, either in my gallery or give it to my assistant. Now in a situation like this, I probably would have placed these in the opposite order so I could ensure this painting was placed in my gallery, not touching this one. And those are all of the rules for placement except one. As the game goes on, you may eventually run into a situation where you don't have room left in your gallery to place a painting that you just gained. But we'll come back and talk about that later. For now, let's learn the next step of the round, increasing prestige. Here we come back to the single painting that had not been claimed during the auction, and we move it to the area beside the museum board, matching the color of its type. This is a green landscape type, so it would go beside this green barred area here. You then advance its related marker a number of spaces forward on this track equal to the token it had been beside. And if you ever forget which token you had it beside, the value is also showing on the back of the painting. Now just be aware, markers on this track can never share the same space. If a token ends its move on the same value as another marker, instead move it backwards to the first available space. So let's say we had a situation like this, and the blue marker was advancing 3 spaces. 1, 2, 3. It ends here and would then be forced to move backwards to this space. Over the course of the game, if one of these markers would ever move past the end of this track, just note that it banked 50 points and continue counting from the start of the track again. So being here would actually count as 54. After increasing prestige based on the leftover painting, it's time for the round end step. Here, each player must lock in the placement of any paintings or decor they collected that round, and then the player with the gavel passes it to their left, making that player the auctioneer as you begin a new round. And with that understood, there's one key rule we need to go over, which is resolved when a player gains a painting that doesn't fit within their gallery wall. When this happens, they may first choose to give it to their assistant if they want. If they don't want to, or can't, because their assistant is already holding an item that also wouldn't fit on their wall, then they may choose to exchange their new painting with one from the museum if they want. The painting they exchange for may be any from beside the museum, matching the type of painting they took this round. I'm holding a still life painting, so I can exchange for any one of these other still life paintings that would fit onto my board instead. Just be aware, when you perform an exchange, you do not adjust the related prestige marker. Just leave the prestige markers where they currently are. On the other hand, if there are no valid paintings to exchange for that would fit, or if they just don't want to exchange a tile, they must store the painting beside their board as an excess painting. They then collect a single shield decor tile and place it on their board as normal. Excess paintings will cost you points at the end of the game. Speaking of which, rounds will continue until either a player has no empty spaces left on their gallery wall, or players have run out of bid cards in their hand, or any player has stored 2 excess paintings. In any of those situations, you finish the current round and then the game ends. When the game is over, before we get to scoring, you first look at the prestige marker furthest ahead on the track and then move it to the ×5 space at the top here. Then the highest remaining token is moved to the ×4 space, and so on, until all 4 tokens are here at the top. Now, in the very rare case that you have one or more art types valued at 0, because none of their tiles were ever sent to the museum, you assign all of those to the ×2 space. Either way, with the prestige tokens assigned, it's now time for final scoring. Here, each player gains prestige points by counting up the number of paintings they have in each separate color and multiplying those separate values by the related prestige values on the museum board for that type. But make sure you don't include any portrait you might have with your assistant. For example, I have 1, 2, 3 yellow portrait paintings. So I multiply 3 by the yellow value of 2 here, and that means I'd earn 6 points for my yellow paintings. Anytime you earn points, you move your scoring marker that number of spaces along the score track of the museum board. And unlike the prestige markers, you can share a space with another player when scoring points. With one color complete, continue going through your gallery, scoring the other colors, but don't forget about faux pas. Any paintings you have that are adjacent to a painting of the same type are not counted. For example, when I count up my blue paintings, I don't include these two as they're both touching each other along a side. So I'd only count these 1, 2 blue paintings, multiplying that by 5 for a total of 10. I then score my red and green paintings in the same way. Also, when doing this scoring, it's recommended that the player on your left double checks your paintings to make sure you don't accidentally score any faux pas placements you shouldn't have. With prestige scoring complete, each person now earns a number of points equal to the yellow shield symbols found on all the decor pieces hanging within their gallery. But again, keep in mind you don't score anything for paintings or decor held by your assistant. In this case, I've earned another 10 points, which would take me past the end of this track. When that happens, just flip your marker over to the 50-point side to bank those 50 points and continue counting from the start of the track, which would put me here. You may have noticed every gallery has 3 light blue rows. This is known as the eye line of your gallery, and it's also marked by these eyeball icons you'll find on the outside edges. This just helps you remember where your eye line area is, even when your gallery is getting filled in by various items. As it shows here, each player now scores 3 points for each painting from the most prestigious type, blue in this case, that is fully or has any part of it within the eye line area of their gallery. And unlike prestige, where you don't count paintings that are next to each other sharing the same type, any painting of the indicated type within the eye line is counted. So in this case, I have 1, 2, 3, 4 blue paintings within my eye line, so I'd earn 12 more points. Next, if your gallery has no empty spaces remaining inside it, you earn an additional 5 points, but I didn't manage to do this. While playing, as soon as a player has filled their gallery, they can flip this related token face up to show that their gallery is full, and they'll score these bonus points at the end of the game. But don't forget, as soon as a gallery is filled, that's one of the ways the end of the game will be triggered. Either way, each player now loses 2 points for every corner space of their gallery they didn't fill, which will be visible in those corners. So in this case, I'd lose 4 points. Finally, each player loses 2 points for every excess painting they have, again, ignoring any painting or decor item held by their assistant. So here I'd lose 4 more points. Keep in mind, while scoring, if your marker is already on the 50-point side and you cross the end of the track again, just replace your marker with the one showing 100 banked points, which also has 150 banked points on the other side. Either way, with scoring complete, the player with the most points wins. In the case of a tie, the tied players total all the values on the bid cards they still have in hand, and the player with the highest total wins. If there was still a tie, the tied players share the victory.
And that's everything you need to know to play Art Society. If you have any questions at all about anything you saw here, feel free to put them in the comments below, and I'll gladly answer them as soon as I get a chance. You'll also find forums for discussion, pictures, other videos, and lots more over at the Games page on BoardGameGeek, and I'll put a link to that in the description below. And if you found this video helpful, please consider giving it a like, subscribing, and clicking that little bell icon so you get notification anytime we post a new video. And if you'd like to support us directly, you can join our Patreon team, which I'll have linked below. But until next time, thanks for watching.